Now. All right, so we're back for session 2. This is February 6th, 2019. We have an exciting guest speaker tonight, Dylan Fitz. And for those of you guys that don't know, Dylan just got inducted into the Court of Honor over $500,000 in sales at the Vector Cutco Awards night, which is really awesome, and hit standards of excellence. So you got this big giant sword, which is really cool for selling over $186,000 last year. What's also really cool is Dylan is currently our longest standing representative in the history of my career as a district manager to have consecutive $1,000 weeks. He's approaching 50 consecutive weeks in a row over $1,000. I think he's at like 48 consecutive weeks in a row right now over $1,000. So he's going to eclipse a full calendar year of over 100, $1,000 a week for over 52 weeks, which is really impressive. So he's going to talk about closing. This is a guy who, during even when he was a brand new rep, when he was SC2 push, his first time pushing, he booked up 60 plus appointments during a 2-week push. So he knew not only how to make the phone calls, but he knew how to connect and book up appointments to everyone, just about everyone who answered the phone. Then, not only did he book up 60-some appointments, he ended up selling over 50 times on those 60-something appointments. So he knew how to close just about every single sale. So that's his message. He's going to talk about how to close to get the appointments booked, and then he's going to close on how to get the appointments to turn into sales, which is obviously what he knew how to do. Over 500 orders, just right at 500 orders last year. And pretty exciting stuff. Goal of $300,000 in sales this year, and will be inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2 years from today. So Hall of Fame 2021, which is pretty exciting. So turn things over to Mr. Dylan Fitz.
Cool. So we're going to talk closing on the phones and closing on the demo. I have some stuff on phones for actually like getting the appointments. But really what I want to talk about more is setting up the appointments so that you can close. That's really more of where my skill set lies. There are all kinds of scripts and things that you can do that might be you better on, like, if they ask you how long the appointment takes or whatever, that area is more of his domain. So I hope that's okay with you guys. So the first thing that I wrote down here about phone skills is to use the texting approach. If you're not doing that, you're missing out. For recommendations, right? So if you're calling people that you got referred to, my favorite thing about the text approach is that, well, I'll start here. So when I first started using the text approach, what happened was every now and then I would have somebody text me back and they would say, I'm not interested. And I was like, dang, like, I wish I hadn't texted them. I wish I had called them so I could explain what I'm doing and then they would be interested, right? And so that was my mentality for a little while. And what I realized was that if right off the bat you're saying, hey, I have this thing, can you help me with it? And they're like, no, I'm not interested. That's just a person you don't want to see in general. Like, if they're not open-minded to at least hearing about this thing that's a random thing, if they're just like, no, I don't have time for anything right now, for whatever, like, you don't want to see that person. So I would much rather text them, have them text me back and say not interested and take them off my list than calling them 5 and 6 times before they finally answer the phone and finally give me this objection or whatever. It's just a waste of time. So I like the text approach for that reason, that it actually will get the negative people off of your list. And also then you'll have the other people follow suit. But that's my favorite part about the text approach. So do that if you're not doing that. So the next thing that I wrote down about phones is that, and this is for closing in general, is that what you say and how you say it matters. Okay? So the easiest way to kill your phone approach is in the first thing that you say. And so I'll do it 2 ways for you, and you can tell me which way you think would probably work the best. Okay? So if you're calling a lady named Kathy Jones, we'll say. So you're calling and you just have one number for them, right? You don't know what it is or whatever, and it happens to be the house phone, so the husband answers, right? So he answers as, hello. And you say, hi, this is Dylan. I'm calling for Kathy, or I'm calling for Miss Jones. Is she available? Okay, so that's one. Hi, this is Dylan. I'm calling for Miss Jones. Is she available? Okay, so that's one. The other way to do it is, hey, is Kathy home? Okay. So one way is going to get the husband saying, who the hell is this telemarketer person trying to call my wife? And the other way is going to get him to say, here, let me get her for you. Okay. So at that point in your conversation, you just want to be super upbeat, super enthusiastic, and as informal as you can get without sounding like a teenager, right? So just super enthusiastic and positive and just like informal. I don't care what your upbringing is. Use her first name. If you absolutely have to, I would use a last name. So if it was reversed, if it was a reverse scenario where the wife answered, but like I was told specifically to talk to the husband, like he's the cook and he's the one that cares, but maybe I didn't get his name, I would say something like, I would say something like, oh, is Mr. Smith there or something like that. That would be really the only scenario where I would ever say that. It's just use their last name to get to the person that I cared about. So that's one example of like using your words in the proper way to get you a better result. That's really all closing is about, is just getting the result that you want, right? So that's the first example on the phone, is to skirt your way around the husband. If you guys don't know this, the unspoken purpose of a husband in his life is to just deflect calls from people trying to call his wife. Like that's like a favorite thing for them to do. It's just like, they don't care who it is or what it is or what great thing they have to tell their wife. They just want to keep that person from talking to them. So skirt around him a little bit with your upbeat tonality. So make sure that that's part of the way that you practice your phone approach. I'm going to skip down to, you've kind of already explained who you are and what you're doing, and they're like, cool with that or whatever. And so you're getting ready to tell them what time you're going to be there and ask them for that time. So a line that I would write down is that I'm going to be working in your area on this day or that day, right? So I'm gonna be working in your area on this day or this day. So that's useful, because if they feel like you're already gonna be there, it's gonna help them to want to just like, we might as well, right? This is really common for service calls where the person's like, oh, honey, I don't want you to have to drive all the way out here for my 2 nights. And it's like, cool, I'm going to be working in Tampa all freaking day anyways. So, might as well, right? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is when you say I'm going to be working in your area on Wednesday or Thursday, you're giving them an option of choosing one of those 2 days versus saying yes or no, right? So that's a big part of my closing philosophy is options, right? So letting them kind of, and that helps me to kind of also regulate my schedule a little bit depending on where people are at. If I can give them, a couple of days, or let's say that I have 2 days that are totally open. So I could do 6 times on this day and 7 times on that day. So instead of just picking 2 random times, if I ask them which day works better for them, they say, oh, Wednesday. Okay, well, I have these 2 times on Wednesday. Because if I say Wednesday at 6 p.m. or Thursday at, 10 in the morning, if neither of those times work for them, but 10 in the morning on Wednesday could have worked for them, it's just easier to start to reverse engineer that. So, offer the 2 options. Do the same thing with your times. Once you narrow down the day, offer the 2 time options. If you don't have 2 days in a specific area available, or if you're booked, whatever, then just go to the 2 times, right? So just find options. If you only have 1 time left, I can be there at, 5:45 or 6:15, which of those work better for you, right? And then you can just show up earlier or whatever. I wouldn't show up late, but you can show up to a demo as early as half an hour early, and they'll probably still be there, and they won't be like, why are you here so early? They'll be like, oh, you're early. Okay, cool. So that's a neat thing there. So we booked the appointment now. So now you're moving to address, right? What's your address? Obviously you want to ask that. You also probably want to ask like, how do I get there, right? So they have to like spend a little bit of time like explaining to you, like you take this left and you go down this way, and that helps them to just remember the appointment. So how do I, can you give me some directions, right? But the important part about this section is, so you get the address, okay. Do you have any trees or bushes or anything out front? Okay, great. You have a big oak tree in the yard? Awesome. All right. Well, if I'm not there by 3 o'clock, just go ahead and light those on fire so I can follow the smoke if I got lost. Okay, Miss Jones? So like this is the same part of like the first part of the approach where we're like being funny and upbeat and happy. If you include jokes into little things like that in your phone approach, it's going to help the appointment stick, and it's going to connect them better to your being a real person. So try and use jokes. I'm going to tell you guys a couple of jokes and things that I say in my phone approach from time to time. Generally, I don't say all of them every single time because the call will probably take like 15 minutes with all my jokes, right? And they just, after a while, they just be like, okay, let's get to the point here, right? So I would pick jokes just depending on what they give you, right? So that's one of them. If they say we don't have any trees, okay, what color's your car? Okay, awesome. We'll just go ahead and light that on fire. Like just to say, if they like, we don't have any cars, you have a grass, okay, well, light the grass on fire. I don't know, say something, right? The next one is your reference number for the appointment. So if you guys don't know this, you schedule the appointment, they're writing stuff down, you have them write your name down and your time down, right? You say you'll also probably want to have the reference number for the appointment, which is, and then just give them your office number or your rep number. I like to use the rep number because it's a little bit longer and I'll space it out. So I'll say like, okay, so the reference number for your appointment is 433. And then they'll say, yeah, okay. Like they're like, finish writing that down, right? So 433, 632, yeah, 45. So I like wait intentionally long there for them to respond to me so they get the idea that like you're supposed to be writing this down. So they do that. So I give them the number and I say, just so you know, that number also works as a discount code for you since you're, and give them a reason, whether since you're referred by whoever, since you're a friend of my mom, or since you're a returning Cutco customer, since something. So that's gonna like, it's a subtle seed plant for them to like be in a buying atmosphere if they have this nice discount code, right? And then also you'll every once in a while you'll be like, so you'll get that's a discount code for you, and you'll have the Miss Joneses be like, what, can you repeat that real quick? I need to like So she wasn't like writing it down until now. It's like a discount code. She's like, let me write that down real quick. So say that. That's a good one. So you have them write that down, okay? Then draw a big smiley face with a pink mohawk and big muscles, so you know what I look like when I get there. Okay, so you're like, so write this down, write that down, and then next to that, draw a big smiley face with a pink mohawk and big muscles, so you know what I look like when I get there. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't have big muscles.
Pink muscles?
I don't have big muscles.
Oh, big muscles.
Yeah, I don't have big muscles. So that's another joke, right? So, and the other thing I wrote down here for phones, this is good for objections, right? This is something that actually I've been working on recently, is practice responding to any questions that the customer gives you, whether it's on the phone or on the appointment, in a non-serious way. So we all know this for the time joke, right? How long does the appointment take? It only takes about 3 or 4 hours, but if it runs over, I'll just bring a sleeping bag. It's fine. I'm just kidding. It's actually only, whatever. So what you're doing is you're just responding in a non-serious way that is like directed towards their question, right? It's like sort of answering it, but it just like kind of, again, brings that around to like you're human and you're jokey and you're fun, right? If you just respond right away with whatever it is, obviously, first of all, they're probably going to think it's a long period of time. And secondly, you miss on an opportunity for that human connection there. So you can do that with anything. So if a customer comes up to me to show and they're like, oh, how much are those scissors? I'm like, they're only $3,000, but you get this like whole set of knives over here with them too. And they're awesome. I'm just kidding. You can get the scissors just by themselves, obviously. So it's like, it just redirects the question, right? And really, you don't even have to answer it in the end if you don't want to. So a lot of times I'll just be like, oh, do you already have a pair of scissors? Like, I just don't even tell them how much the scissors are. So, so that's a neat tip there. So that's a little bit of phone skills for you guys. As far as demo stuff, I wrote down here, closing is the transfer of value. You must understand and internalize that concept so that you can really like understand that you're doing a good thing for your customer, okay? So closing is the transfer of value. So if you understand and know in your internal belief that closing that customer is going to be a good thing for them, you're going to feel better about doing everything that you can to close that sale. All right. I also wrote down to treat every prospect like a buyer, and you'll be surprised at how many people buy. All right. And that's not because when you treat them like a buyer, suddenly they have more money. What it really comes down to is if you treat everybody like a buyer, you're going to actually give your 100% pitch and approach and demo to that person. And that way they'll have more reason and opportunity to buy because you did a better job. Versus if you prejudge them and say, oh, this person's probably not going to buy, so I'm going to drop down real quick and blah or whatever. And then surprise, surprise, they don't buy because you didn't do your job right, is really what it comes down to. So the caveat to that is like, not every person is a great prospect, right? So if I get a referral for this 60-year-old lady who lives in a trailer park and has 2 teeth, that's probably just not somebody that I'm going to call right away, right? So I'm not going to treat her at the same level as like this, 40-year-old mom of 2 kids that lives, in Cheval and Lutz. Like, that's just going to get more of my attention. But when I'm sitting in the trailer park lady's house and I'm there already, she's a freaking buyer, all right? It's the question of my time, okay? So if I'm there, she's a buyer. Or if they come to me at the booth, they're a buyer, all right? On the same lines of that, I wrote down to commit to showing everybody everything, all right? They can't buy it if they don't know that we sell it. And if they don't know Cutco, they only know what you tell them. So they can't buy cookware, they can't buy flatware, they can't buy, outdoor fillet knives or hunting knives or gifts for their kids or any of that stuff, or can openers or whatever, if they don't know that we sell them. So you should commit to showing everybody everything and at least showing them. You shouldn't do a full, half hour, 10-minute presentation on everything every time. But at a minimum, if I'm in a super huge rush, I'm just going to flip to the page and go, just so you know, we also make the world's best cookware. What's your cookware situation like? Oh, your cookware is phenomenal. You love it. Great. Well, if you ever need to replace it, Cutco's got it on their guarantee forever, right? We also make awesome stainless steel tableware. Do you love the tableware set they're using right now, or could you see yourself upgrading? Oh, you don't like your tableware. Well, just so you know, and then you dive into it, right? So just commit to showing everybody everything and at least voicing it, so that way you can have that opportunity. And that goes back to treating everybody like a buyer, right? So one of the things that I have really recently found interesting is that in a lot of cases, there's a point in the approach and the pitch and the demo that I can remember looking back on it where I'm like, I had this thought, and the thought was that I could cut corners and not do the best job that I could do, and or not even not do the best job, but just do it a quicker way that's maybe not the full way of doing it, because I'm not sure that would work, right? And the funny thing is, whenever I decide, screw it, I'm just going to do the best that I can, it always works better. So whenever they give you the objection, oh, the homemaker, that's just too much money. We don't have that in the budget, right? So you have a choice there. You have two paths that you can take. The one path is that's okay. We can just look at something that's a little bit smaller. Let me just show you this galley set. And then they're like, no, I just can't do anything today. Okay, well, I'm going to be your rep. So let me know whenever you're in the market for knives, and we can get you whatever you want. That's the shortcut way of getting a no sale, right? And then never getting a call back. The better way to do it is to do the objection cycle, figure out what their problem is. Okay, okay, so it's too much money for knives, or is it too much for your budget? Oh, it's too much for a budget? Well, we have a lot of smaller options that don't cost $1,000. Do you mind if I just show you something else that might work a little bit better based on, the fact that you don't really have $1,000 budget for knives right now? Cool. So the next one that we have that's a little bit better probably for your situation is the galley. And then you go from the galley to, the essential sets. And then you go from the essential sets to a buy 3, get 1. And then you go from buy 3, get 1 to one single trimmer they're going to use for the next 30 years, right? So just do your job appropriately. And if you do that, you'll find that instead of having to go to the trimmer every single time, you'll sell more of the stuff in between. So it's the same thing for you guys that are doing service calls. I definitely have had times where I'm pitching somebody and I'm writing a number down. I'm like, this is $10,000 worth of stuff that I'm about to quote them, and there's no way they're going to buy it, but I'm going to friggin' write it down here, so at least maybe they'll buy an ultimate upgrade or something like that, right? So that's the same thought process, is doing the best that you can do, whether or not you you believe, pretend, fake it till you make it, right?
Can I interject for just a second?
Sure, go for it.
Just because it's been a lot of content, I think it's appropriate just for you to go through real quick on the phone stuff before he continues to go through this demo stuff of like what was one or two like nuggets or highlights from the phone stuff before he finishes off with all the demo stuff, just so that doesn't get lost. So Josh, we'll go Josh, and then Trey.
Practice answering any questions in like a non-serious way.
Good.
I liked just asking in a friendly way, like, "Oh, hey, is blank home?"
Simple. Good.
Asking for directions.
Cool. Steven?
I'm actually going to be in Tampa on Monday at 2, so does it work out? Like, can I swing by?
Yeah, so assume it. Excellent.
Nice.
Good. Anyone in virtual land from the phone stuff?
Pausing on the reference number, kind of get their attention, make sure they're writing it down.
Yeah, that'll help with completion rate for sure.
Cool.
Maybe one more?
I definitely like all the jokes that they make. I'm going to start using those.
Yeah, the jokes, it gets them excited for the demo. So, it increases the completion rate for your appointments too. So, it's good. Excellent. Cool. So, you can continue on the demo stuff. I just wanted to come up for some air for just a moment. I know.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know I just have like a wealth of knowledge and I'm just kind of like spraying out with the friggin' fire hose right now. But,
yeah.
Certain things land for some people and then other things make more sense for other people. So the goal is to really just like take things that make the most sense for you and then pick the ones that you think will make the biggest difference and do those right away. So I just have a couple more things on demo stuff for you, and then I actually have a couple of other needs, maybe little, I guess you'd call them one-liners, but they're different. Okay, so you have that point. Back to going to the belief in yourself that closing is better for somebody than letting them not buy something, right? So I wrote down here, this is my favorite way of thinking of myself while I'm closing somebody, is pleasantly persistent, okay? So rather than like pushy, just replace that with pleasantly persistent, okay? Just keep the conversation going. That's the biggest thing. Even at the booth, you'd be amazed at how often, if you just keep talking to somebody and just like keep the conversation moving, you don't even have to drop down or give them something free or what. You just keep them talking for 5 minutes, and then eventually they'll circle back around in their mind to like, you know what, we really do need a set of knives, and then they just buy the thing that you already showed them, even though they said no 2 or 3 or 5 minutes ago. So you might have to also drop down, but if you just keep that conversation going, you'll have a better shot at closing, all right? But pleasantly persistent versus pushy, okay? Everybody secretly appreciates a really good salesperson when they're like nice. So the other thing that I have on closing here on the demo is what I call, this is like a TM Dylan thing. It's called the Cutco pile, okay? So especially if you have a bunch of knives to show people, if you're on a virtual, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but in person, it makes a world of difference. So pull everything out that they are looking at, that you're about to show them a price for, and put it in front of them so they can see them. All right. It's a lot harder for people to say no to a bunch of nice shiny Cutco than it is for them to say no to something written on a piece of paper. All right. So service calls, especially too, everything they got on their wish list that you're about to close them on, just put it all on the table. All right. So that's called the Cutco pile. It's you'll notice that there's a big difference there for sure when you start doing that. Okay, so I have one other thing to talk about before I go, which is they're called closes, right? It's closing talk. So I didn't know this until about 3 years into the business, but there are different types of closes. Cutco only teaches you one close, which is really a form of a trial close, where you're asking them, did you want to have the table knives or the basic set, right? That's a trial close. You're asking them a question about like their buying habit right there. Then you ask, okay, and you wanted the classic or the pearl? And they're like, well, we would do the pearl. Okay. And then you're like, well, would you want to have the super shears or the kitchen tools for free? Okay. So that's like 3 different trial closes. And then Cutco teaches you to just ask them for the order. Great. Did you want to get it today? So that's a close. That's a good close. It works really well for everybody when they're new, right? But there are other different types of closes. And one of my favorite closes is called an assumption close. All right. And so instead of asking them for the order at the end there, you could do those same things, the table knives and the color and the whatever and the payments, and so you just ask them a couple of questions and then just say, great, what kind of credit card do you want to put it on? And it's really funny because the first couple times you do it, you're going to be like really nervous. And then probably, I'd say if everybody in this room did that on their next appointment, probably 5 people, they just say, oh, we'll just do it on a debit card. It's like crazy. Because everybody, this is another thing. I didn't write this down. This is a good line. People are closer to buying than you realize. So you just assume that they're going to buy, they buy. It's crazy. And then like the other 50% of people, they'll be like, whoa, like we didn't know, like, we haven't decided, like whatever, like they're like, oh, slow down a little bit, right? And that's not an issue because you're just going to continue to ask them, or they'll just give you the objection outright, and that's a lot easier than you have to ask for it. So that's called an assumption close, which I love. That's a cool one. I have 2 other ones down here that I really like that you can use. And the benefit of having multiple different closes, like I said before, is to keep the conversation going, right? So if you have new different words to say to ask them for an order, you can just keep saying those new different words, and you don't sound like a broken record where you're just saying, do you want to buy the homemaker? Do you want to buy the homemaker? Do you want to buy the homemaker? You can just say different things and keep asking them to buy the homemaker in different ways. So the other one that I really like is courtesy of Hal Elrod, who is a really OG Cutco person. And he calls it the emotional roller coaster close. And what you guys will probably want to do is just like bullet point that. And if you really like it, like text me or WhatsApp me, and I'll give you the actual script for it. But this is the way it goes. The emotional roller coaster close, depending on whether you're working with a new customer or Cutco owner, is something to the effect of, and I'm Miss Jones. Just so you know, I've been selling Cutco for a little while now. And anytime that somebody looks at buying Cutco, there's always a little bit of like an emotional roller coaster, all right? So when you first see the cost of Cutco, you're wondering, gee, that's a lot of money for knives. Do I really need to spend that much money on knives? And I'll tell you that once people get over that hump and they start using their Cutco knives, when they arrive and you first start using them, everybody always ends up in happy customer land. And I can tell you 10, 20, 30 years from now, you won't even remember how much you spent on them. You'll just remember that you love the knives, all right? So did you want to do classic or pearl, by the way? And you just move into a question, right? So that's the emotional roller coaster close of like taking them through the fact that they like probably you're meeting where they're at, like they're probably anxious about spending that money on knives, but like everybody always appreciates it. Is you're gonna feel the same way. So don't worry about it, right? That's the emotional roller coaster close.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, and like I said, if you need the specific verbiage, just WhatsApp me.
It's also being recorded.
It's being recorded, so I'm not even going to waste time on it. But good question. Let's see. This is a really good one if you're working with a couple. Okay, it's a think about it. It's a form of a think about it handler, right? So if the wife is like the main cook and she's sitting there and you ask for the homemaker and she says, well, we would need to talk about something like that, right? Has anybody ever heard that before? Okay. Yeah, only like every week, right? And they're sitting right there too, like you both just saw the demo. Like, what do you need to talk about, right? So it's the easiest thing in the world. The wife says, well, we just need to talk about that first. You just look to the husband and you go, well, Josh, I mean, just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on getting a set of knives?
I want to.
You want to? I mean, Ms. Jones, like, it seems like you guys would really use a set of knives. Sounds like you guys both think that you would use it. Like, why don't we just do it? You know?
What if that person says no?
They don't always say no. A lot of the time, they'll give the objection that the other person is feeling because they're a married couple and they think kind of alike. So it's just a way of getting somebody to tell you why they, wouldn't buy the knives. So in a lot of cases, the husband will say, well, it's just that we got blank. And then you know what the problem is, right? And then you can handle that problem. So it's way better than saying, sure, let me call you tomorrow and never getting an order. So that's the easiest way I know to handle that one. It's like, well, blank, what do you think about blank? And you just like look at them right in the face and directly ask them a question. And the last one that I have for you there, let's see. So this is a really good one. Has anybody ever had somebody tell them, I love the knives, I would definitely get them, but the timing right now, just like we just had, we had to pay for tuition and our water heater just broke and my car needs a new tire and we're going on vacation next week and the economy's terrible right now. And they just like come up with all these crazy reasons of why they can't buy knives, right?
Yes.
So think about your own life right now. Like there's never a time where you're just killing it and have a bunch of money, right? Like you always have something that you're like, I need to pay this off or this is coming up or this thing happened to me, right? It's just life. All right. So it's the same thing for them. There's never going to be a time where they just have a bunch of money hanging around. That doesn't happen. Okay. So just let them know that you know that, and have them verbalize that in their mind. The way that you say it without sounding like an asshole like I do right now is, so you would say, hey, I totally understand that things happen. However, you and I both know there's never going to be really a perfect time to buy knives. I always say it like that with like the air quotes, right? There's never going to be a perfect time to buy knives. You'll always have stuff going on and popping up. That's life. And they say there's no time like the present. So let's just get it over with so you can start enjoying the knives right away. And I'll be your Cutco guy from now on. So like, and you just, sell them on why they want Cutco and ask them for the order again, right? Or / drop down, right? So like, let's just find you a set that works a little bit better for your budget right now, given the fact that you just paid your kids' tuition. We have some smaller sets that will probably work better for you. Gallery set, right? So that's the way that works. That one, if you guys want to have that one, is called Never the Best Time. That's the name for that.
Could you repeat it one more time?
Sure, yeah. So, hey, I totally understand things happen, and you and I probably both know that there's never going to be like the perfect time to buy Cutco knives, right? You're always going to have things going on and popping up, and that's life. They say that there's no time like the present. So why don't we just go ahead and, if I give you the Super Shears also, do you think that we can just knock out the Homemaker set? You guys can start enjoying the knives right away. Something like that, right? You don't always have to drop the price. But so that's what I got for you guys on the closing. If I haven't overstayed my welcome to it, we could take some questions maybe. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's questions for sure.
So,
yeah, we got a couple minutes for that for sure.
Cool. Does somebody in virtual land have a question first?
And it could be about what he talked about or anything that you've experienced to help you with closing sales, maybe a scenario, or it could be anything with getting appointments if you're hearing phone objections or concerns on why people don't book up the appointments with you.
One thing about like when you're calling and you're setting up a demo and someone starts off by saying, oh, we already have a great set of knives, so, just keep that in mind when you come. Like, what do you like, how do you prepare yourself for when you get to that demo, you are able to like persuade them, or what do you say to them when they say that to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love that line of thought. I have something typed out that I send people all the time when they ask me this question. So if you can WhatsApp me and ask me for the high quality knife, like verbiage, right? High quality knife verbiage, I can send that to you. But so here's the thought process, right? Yeah, yeah, I'll post it in the main one, but I just need somebody to remind me.
Yeah, I'll remind you.
Yeah. So here's the thought process, right? If somebody owns good knives, like actual good ones, like Wusthof or Henkel's or Shun or something like that, I'm like frothing at the mouth to get that appointment, right? Because if they shell out money for that stuff, they're gonna be in love with Cutco. The fact that it's the same amount of money, right? They're gonna spend the same amount, but the Cutco is just gonna last them so much longer. Our customer service is so much better. It's American made. So like in my mind, I'm like, that's an appointment that I definitely want. When you explain it to them, you're just equating the stuff that they value, which is high quality things, to what Cutco is, and it's going to last a lot longer. So that's the kind of the thought process there. But for you personally, when somebody says that to you, you should just be more excited about that appointment. And if you need to verbalize that, you just say something along the lines of like, yeah, that's no problem. Like I said, you don't have to get anything, but I just get paid to show it, and it helps me out with my scholarship. So, could you do this time or this time, right? So you just kind of hand a little bit and continue to book the appointment. That's what I would do.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. We'll take a live question next. Josh.
So if you do use the assumption close, assuming they're just like, oh, what card you on third on?
Yeah.
How do you play it off if they're like, oh, whoa, slow down there, guy?
Yeah. No, if they're like, well, we we're not sure if we're gonna do this or not or whatever, you just say like, oh, no worries. So, do you want me to show you the things that come in the set, or do you just ask them like, what do you That's what I would do. I would just kind of stumble a little bit. Like, what's the
Why?
right? Yeah, Or the easy question is, what's the main thing that would be holding you back from just going ahead and getting it? That's basically it.
So could you say like the 4 questions? Like, so what was it about it that you that you were not feeling?
Yeah, pretty much. Just any question, right? Just ask them a question, regain control, and then build a little bit more value, explain a little bit more. Yeah. That is the assumption closes after you do some of those questions, right?
Oh.
So that's based on the fact that they're answering those trial closes already, right?
Well, not the trial closes. Like, okay, so you like cooker, right?
Oh, the objections. Yeah. So that's exactly right. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Like, so you like Cutco, so why? Yeah.
Yeah. And just so you guys have those 4 questions, did you like Cutco? Yes. What did you like most about it? If you don't mind me asking, what are you unsure of? Was it a lot too much or a little too much? Those are the 4 questions.
Yeah. Do you have a follow-up question to that or something?
Yeah. So when you were saying about keep the conversation going, I know like when you say like group demos, it can be like really, really good or really, really bad. So like in that sense of like if you're keeping the conversation going and you're just like talking about, and she keeps bringing up like why she doesn't need knives. Like how do you switch it to regain control? I guess.
Yeah. So when I say like keep the conversation going, the idea is that you're continuing to do like say some of the, like I said, like the closes, right? Ideally, so I forgot to mention this too, which is in my notes. So one of the best sales books that I ever read is remember we were talking about Grant Cardone 10X Conference. So it's called The Closer's Survival Guide, and it's literally 150 different ways to ask for an order. So each of those, the emotional roller coaster close and the need to think about it one with the husband or whatever, like all those are a different close. There's 150 different of those, right? It's called The Closer's Survival Guide by Grant Cardone. And if you buy it in paperback format, because you get it, it's like workbook style, where it'll have the close on one page and the other page is blank for you to rewrite it with Cutco verbiage. All right. So then you rewrite it, it's, thicker in your brain, and you can study those, with Cutco related stuff. So that's where like I learned a lot of these things, and you don't need to memorize all of them, but you should probably have 4 or 5 ones that you kind of go to, because if you can say 4 or 5 kind of different things, that'll probably get you to the point where you're getting an order, right? So that's what I mean when I say like keep the conversation going. Now, if they keep hitting me with the same thing over and over again, that's obviously like you want to pivot a little bit to something that would actually solve that objection rather than just like get around it, right? So if they're continuing to say, for example, like we don't need new knives, probably you just want to look to your value part of the demo to figure out like why they still don't think that. Here's another good one that I did earlier, right? Which is the re-demo close. So if you for some reason didn't quite nail the value of Cutco, and they're unsure of like why they would need to have new knives compared to the ones that they've already got, you say like they'll say like, oh, Steven, just we just really don't need new knives right now. Just go, okay, cool, no worries. Like I just get is it okay if I do my job and show you some of the other options that you have? Okay, cool. So you do the line that you have where you can continue to show them a different option. That's what I would do. And then next you go, by the way, I just want to show you how close you are to getting a new set of knives. So you grab the leather that you just cut earlier, right? Which is the scraps are probably near. And you grab a small piece and you go, just one more time, Miss Jones, just so I can show you real quick. Just cut the leather one more time with the Cutco steak knife, okay? And you take the really small piece of leather and you go, you're this close to getting a set of knives that'll last you for forever. So at that point, you can be like, so you remember how your knives on the leather, like, come on, Miss Jones. So that's like a re-demo close where you're like rebuilding the value. And then obviously you continue to drop down from there, where the objection is probably not that they don't need new knives. The objection is probably just closer to they don't need those specific new knives, or they don't want to spend money on the new knives, right? So that's really what it comes down to in the end, is really going to be those 2 objections of like the products that you're pitching them or the price of those products, right? Yeah, so that's another one that's really cool. Is that's so nasty, the leather. We have time for one more question probably, so if anybody has one other one.
One more?
About any situation that you have encountered that you weren't sure about how to handle to close an order. Or if you want to know how I close $1,000 worth of knives every single week for the last almost a year,
Yes.
I could talk
Yeah, they
about
want to know about that.
Right.
How do they get 3 to 4 orders every week?
So at our net meeting conference last week, Josh Muller, who's the number 2 Cutco representative of all time with over $4 million in Cutco sold, talks about the 5 to thrive. He said, if you can put yourself in front of 5 qualified prospects in whatever period of time, that period of time is going to be good, right? So whether that's if you're in heavy school right now and it's 5 people a week, you're going to have a good week. Whether it's push mode and you're trying to do 5 people in a day or half a day or whatever, you're going to have a good day, right? It's hard if you're putting yourself in front of 5 decently qualified prospects to not have a good time, all right? So that's my focus, right? It's just like, it's a numbers game. You guys have heard this before. Sales is a numbers game, right? So the 5 to thrive thing is important. And then the other thought that I have on that's related to the net meeting that somebody asked me about, a representative in North Carolina, who's a friend of mine, his name is Michael. He asked me, he says, what do you do to stay so consistent where you just don't get burned out? Like, I'll sell really hard for a couple of weeks and then I need to take like a week or a week and a half off or kind of mess around for a little while just to like readjust and, not get burned out. And so he said that. And then he asked me, like, how often do you work? And I looked at him and I just go, what do you mean? And he's like, well, like how many days off do you how many weeks off did you, no, he said, how many weeks did you have off last year? I said, none. This is my job. This is my life. I work all the time so I can make money and live the life that I want to, right? I'm not just like out here taking days off willy-nilly and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I have a schedule and I plan that schedule and I work on those dates. That's how I do what I do. So the answer to consistency is literally just being consistent. If you show up to phone jams and make phone calls and then go and do those appointments, it's not that hard. So just do that. Just get appointments. All right. Get in front of people and do your job. Make the phone calls, do the demos, say the script, close the orders.
Awesome. Let's give Dylan some love. I was reviewing my notes from 10X, and one of the quotes that I have here is, what is sales? Sales is making contact with someone. And he said, if I contact you, you might contact me back. That's what he said. So if I contact you, you might contact me back. But if I don't contact you, there's no chance of you ever contacting me. And that's the way he describes sales. What an easy philosophy. So it's like, said the same thing differently, no one's going to call you. No one's going to send you a message. No one's going to send you a text. No one's going to send you an email. No one's going to contact you to buy the knives. So your job in sales is simply making contact, initiating contact. That's why it said it's a contact sport. The more people you contact, the more chances you have that they will contact you back. So think about it in those terms: sending messages, sending texts, making phone calls, and just being resourceful. So excellent stuff. I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate Dylan's time for giving us some really great, valuable tools. And what do we do with this? I mean, realistically, moving forward, we now have 36 appointments ahead of us as a team. And, right now it's a matter of execution on those appointments. We, as we discussed during session 1, we need to make sure that we're at, $12,000 in sales per week to recover from a subpar January. And we want to provide another 31 jobs. So we provide 31 jobs, and we collectively get to $12,000 a week with those new recruits and each other. We're going to have some exciting things. So I want to give a shout out to Alex, one of his friends that he 3-way texted earlier during session 1, put me in the 3-way text message with him. So he texted them, put me in a 3-way text, and he has an interview tomorrow. So Sierra's going to be running an interview for one of Alex's friends. And then Josh, I have a 3-way going with Josh's friend. I have another 3-way going with another one of Alex's friends too. So we have 3 potential recruits just from those quick, simple text messages. So it's not about big, giant action. It's about small, consistent activity on a regimented basis. So thank you again for your efforts. Hopefully you got some value tonight. Enjoy your benchmark calls tomorrow. And I'll look forward to connecting with you all soon. So thank you, Zoom friends. Have a great rest of your night. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully you got enough value to join us again.